I'd like to call the January 9th, 2022 special call city council meeting for the city of Lake City to order. Everyone will stand for the pledge of allegiance, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather and conduct the business of our community. We ask for your guidance today, and what we do is for the betterment of our community and our citizens. We ask that you continue to look after our community and our first responders. And we thank you, pray. Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hill. Here. Mr. Jefferson.
Here.
Mr. Sampson.
Here.
Mayor Witt.
Here.
Mr. Dial.
Here.
Mr. Coberline.
Here.
Chief Butler.
Here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Lake City Council has opened its public meeting since 1968. The city code has prohibited any person from making personal remarks, becoming boisterous while addressing the council. Yelling and making audible comments from the audience constitutes boisterous conduct. Such conduct will not be tolerated. There's only one approved manner of addressing the city council, that is to be recognized and speak from the podium. Okay, we have approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for approval of the agenda, but with moving item 4 to the first position under new business.
And I've been asked to bring up an issue before about an MLK walk run, something like that. That's coming up before our next council meeting, so we would need to address it as a special item. And I would go ahead and take that up too. Okay, first, we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
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 Mayor,
Okay.
excuse me, Mayor, we did not have a second on the motion.
I second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, persons wishing to address council, Mr. Warren.
Sylvester Warren, 930 Northeast Joe Coney Terrace. Mr. Mayor, there's a few things that I want to say, and if you would take note to my public comment paper that I filled out, I also want to speak on the MLK issue, and then also now that I know that we're going to have an interview with the candidate, Mr. Adam, I want to speak to that when the time comes. The first thing I want to say is, Mayor, we're facing some very complex issues as a city government. I was at the 9:30 County Commission meeting on Thursday. The things that the commissioner said about you as a government body, I almost felt the need to intervene, but not wanting to be a part of a lack of decorum, I did not. There seems to be a level of distrust coming from the side of the county. They seem to think that either they force you off the table for regional utility, or they move full speed without you. They made a motion, they voted on that. They also went as far as to say that we, and I'm offended because I'm a city resident, that we, meaning the city, we use our utility fund as a slush fund. It's our fault, meaning you guys' fault, that we're in that predicament. And they said that you all can't be trusted, no more handshake deals with you guys, and that the only way that they can do business with y'all is that through contracts. Here's what I say, Mayor. I'd say that the city has the most experience when it comes to utility. The county has zero. They need us. And what I would say is that the city, we're weak right now because of a lack of a whole lot of things. And it may be wise that we separate ourselves from these talks until we get our house in order, where it makes sense to work with the city, with utilities, we do so. But do not let anybody on this council, including yourself, that may be in bed with the county commissioners, trick this city into getting in business with the county in any type of regional utility deal. I don't know if you read this, but this is not how you do business with another entity if you want to form a partnership and do great things together. You don't talk like this about another party. In saying that, we need to be extremely careful as to who we pick as the next city manager. We need to make sure that person has a whole lot of municipality experience and government experience. We cannot take a chance on nobody who has little experience. They need to have a breadth of experience for the complex issues that we're facing with the city government, Mayor. And I thank you for your time, and I'll see you on the next items.
All right, that's all I have on general comments.
I thought I put public comments there.
You had item 2. Public comment, yes, you did. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Glenn L. Bowden, 1156 Northeast Bascom Norris Drive. I just have a couple of observations and concerns, Mayor. One is that at the meeting leading up to this, there was a discussion about interviewing both candidates on the same date. I understand there were some issues why it didn't happen, but I do want to say that I think it's unfortunate that we're not interviewing both on the same day. And for a number of reasons, but one of them is there's a perception that the first one at the bite of the apple make it the last impression. There's also an opinion that the last one at the bat that make the best impression on the interview. So that being the case, I think it's a mistake, but we're going for to not interview both candidates on the same day. But I understand that between the day and the next interview is about 10 days, which means that you all would have time to contemplate this interview, to review it over and over on YouTube if you so desire, to get a better understanding of the person you interview in a day over a 10-day period of time. So when you interview the next candidate, I think the only fair thing to do would not to make a decision on that same day, but to afford yourself and others the same opportunity in terms of time to review the interview over that period of time, to digest it, and then at a future meeting, make a decision, but not on the same day. Because if you do that, then I think that would be unfair, because what you would allow me to do after the day is to look at this interview for 10 days and go through it and dissect it and make a decision in my own mind. If you do the other candidate, if you don't allow the other candidate the same opportunity, then you would be denying him that process. So I just wanted to let it be known that I think that not having interviews on the same day is a mistake, and be that as it may, you're going forward with it anyway. I would hope that, Mel, that you all took the time to review the resumes of the two candidates, took the time to look at the cities where they served as a city manager or in whatever capacity. And so that would generate the kind of questions today that would reveal more about them personally, as opposed to just what the resume said. You know, I had to observe, I'm gonna mention this because I need to, is that Santa Fe, Texas, I looked at it. The demographics of Santa Fe, Texas shows that it's about 15,000, 14,000 people there. 0.04 of that population is Black according to the census, which means that there's hardly no Black people. Yeah, I'm not big on numbers. 0.04, that's as close to zero you can get. So there's nobody that looks like me in the city. So some questions need to be asked to generate a feeling in terms of, okay, we know that in this particular situation, the population did not reflect the same kind of person you're going to have in Lake City. And I will reserve to speak to the other issue on that later.
On item 2.
Yes.
Okay,
My card is there.
yeah,
I'm a little confused. You're gonna do this after the first item of business, so is the public comment on the city manager thing after the first item of business? I heard that's what Mr. Warren wanted to do. Is that, I don't know what's going on here.
I reserve to speak at item 1 since I just found out about it.
Yeah. So that's what I want to speak on item 1. This is the second interview. What is the new business? Is the second interview this one? He was already interviewed once on the YouTube, so
right,
so is this the second interview?
yes.
Okay, so I'll be after Mr. Warren on the next one, and I'll wait till you get.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Alright, item 4. Discussion possible action agreement with county regarding business management department services. Mr. Dial, you wanna?
Yes, our city building official resigned a few months ago, and during Mr. Williams's time here, he was unable to find a qualified candidate to fill that position. And currently, the county has been fulfilling our building official needs since October. And since we have been unable to find a qualified candidate to fill the position in all of this time, because a lot of positions are hard to fill at this time, we wanted to recommend, since the county's already doing it, that we appoint the county to be the official county building official for both the city and the county, and allow them to be able to collect the revenue from that. They would be doing the building permitting and the inspection services for us. The city would continue to do code enforcement and our planning and zoning. We have a planning and zoning individual hired who should be starting around the end of the month or the 1st of February.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
And to add on to that, Mayor, if I could, we had myself, some city staff, the county manager and some of his staff, we did have a meeting Monday morning to discuss any issues as far as notifications and the permitting and keeping the city the way that we need to do it, our paperwork and all of that. It was a very good meeting. Mr. Krause and his staff was very accommodating to anything that we need going forward to be able to accommodate any of the forms or any inspections or anything that we need to get done.
Okay. All right, what's the pleasure, council?
Mr. Mayor, at some point I'd like to speak on this.
All right,
Sean Holmgren, 240 Northeast Laguna Drive. I think, as you've heard me refer to the city before as the city of interim, I think that while we're running with interim guidance and management and not having a full complement of staff, I think it's a bad time for you to set anything permanent in motion. I wouldn't mind if you said that you were doing this temporarily and that the county could collect these fees temporarily. But until you actually have a city manager in your employ, an assistant city manager, have a working HR department, have all the different facets that it would take to fill out these other director positions, I think it's ill-advised for you to take and make permanent any changes in the form of government that we've enjoyed for decades. So please, whatever you're doing, continue to do it as an interim fashion. Even as Mr. Dial speaks, he is an interim manager. So please make interim decisions and don't make permanent changes in the staffing of the city as you're going through this development process. I don't think you have a full complement of advisors, so you're ill-advised at this point to make permanent changes. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Sylvester Warren, 930 Northeast Jaconi. Man, I can't even believe I'm about to say this, but I agree with Mr. Hope. It to a certain extent, it breaks my heart to have to agree with him, but he's right. I think the city, if they're not careful, you're falling for the banana in the tailpipe. The county is hitting you because you're weak. You're off balance. You don't have a full setup. I'm not saying that it don't make sense or it do make sense. What I'm saying is, Mel, you have to listen to what the man is saying. We shouldn't be making no permanent. You didn't let Mike Williams make any permanent decision, and I know that Paul Dyer will make great decisions. My whole point is, you're taking the city government in the way that we have been doing business for a very long time, and you're saying that you're gonna just get rid of that whole department because you've given up on trying to find somebody that's qualified. What's the search for somebody that's qualified? Are we looking for somebody that's qualified? You just can't give this over to the county. I mean, you haven't even asked the people. And so if you're not gonna do what we elected you to do, then everybody just get up and just leave the room. Like, you're responsible to us. You're accountable to us. And I think for people who come in this room, 10:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, and put their schedules around you all schedules so we can understand and be a voice in what the city government does. These ain't just anybody old people. These are people that are concerned. We are taxpayers. People who held signs for you, people who voted for you and contribute to you in several ways. And when we ask you all to do something, take something in consideration for the best interest of us, that's what we want, man. So don't be making no willy-nilly adjustments because somebody on the board is trying to appease the county. We're not county residents. We're city residents. And we want to walk in and talk to our building inspector if we need to. And we want you to look for a building inspector. Exhaust that possibility before you just go around giving it to somebody else. If you give this to somebody else, what you going to give next? Our water utilities to them as well? Come on, Mel. You're an attorney. You passed the bar. I want you to use that, please.
Okay, what's the pleasure of council?
Well, Mayor, like I said again, I value Mr. Dowell's view on this. But also, again, I'm like Sylvester and yes. Again, you know, we're going through some rough times right now. And I do think we still need to continue to find a replacement for Mr. David. So to just turn this over to the county, which again, I'm grateful that the county is stepping in, helping us through this time. But I don't think we need to turn this over to the county.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I strongly disagree with that. Dealing with the building department previously and knowing the fact that we never could even hire a building inspector after advertising it for over a year because they have to be licensed contractors now, which they did not have to be before, is the reason we lost Mr. Young. One, two, is the other factor with when our previous building department went to video, not even on-site inspections, is we really had issues. Now I'm hearing from constituents all over who got past inspections. They go out and then the next vendor's coming in and the roof was done, but guess what? The wood didn't get changed because they come out with the phone and do this. And it's because there's too much volume of work for one person. We cannot hire that person because we don't need one person. You get one person to be a building official, then you're going to need a building inspector, which I want to say, Mr. Dodd, I don't know if you're aware, was it 2 years we looked for a building official?
Yes.
And that was open applicants. So they did hire Daniel Gonzalez one point. They kept him, 6 months? And then he got a job being a builder. Because if you're a contractor in this market, you're not going to work for what we can pay because a contractor can make good money in the private sector. So the most important thing is code enforcement and zoning stay within the city. Lots of municipalities and counties work this way. Going through the process in Lowndes County, the city and the county work together on it. It's seamless. And it's good for other points too. We heard about utilities, but what about deposits for utilities? Currently, when the county does a building application, Mr. Dial's utility department may or may not know they need utilities. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so part of what I understand the conversation be from talking to Mr. Dial is that's the information we'll now get, which is kind of crucial when 54% of our utilities in the county. I think it makes sense, and I think it makes sense to let it be fee-based. One, it'll be better for citizens. Two, it'll be better for any business coming in. For example, a hotel that's applied now, that the cost to run those is going to be where the county, they're not going to do it for the same agreement. I wouldn't do it for the same agreement because the cost to do the background work is going to be quite extensive. And that particular project, I don't know if the rest of y'all have gotten calls yet, but you will be getting calls from this operator because he's going to be wanting to know why we're not able to move forward. And I don't think you let business stop just because we're unable to hire someone. I think that's a mistake. So I would make a motion that we would enter into this agreement with the understanding that in the future, any agreement can be changed. But going forward at this point, do we want growth within the city or don't we? And I think that's the question.
Look, Mayor, again, Todd, I hear you, but for years, consolidation has been in the air. And this is what, to me, this is what it looked like we heading down that road to try to consolidate. And I would not support consolidation. So if we give up this, what else we gonna give up?
I don't see consolidation when you can't provide the service.
Mr. Mayor, I think here's the problem that I see. I thought that Mr. Sampson was a city councilman, not a county commissioner, and he seems to be.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes.
First of all, every one of us in this,
Hold on, how you
council is, excuse me, sir, everyone on this council is also a county resident. I just want that to put that into the notice. So we do have county commissioners that we vote for. We do have the cities first and foremost. But I think the second thing is, I thought we already had a time frame here for Mr. Warren's speech.
Hold on.
So are we gonna be
Mr.
starting
Mayor.
at 3 minutes every time, Mr. Mayor?
Now,
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, so I would say to make it quick and move on, because he's had us 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, first of all, at the podium, I got the freedom of speech to say what I want to say, and Todd cut me off. I don't appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. He's mentioned me again,
What do you
please.
want to order for? Because I'm talking.
Okay, just be quick.
I'm saying
Let's move on.
No, you had your 3 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, the county has agreed in the past. First of all, I built several houses through that inspection process where we use the telephone. Nobody has a complaint.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm talking.
I have a complaint on it, using it myself.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, I don't know if we're not gonna use the clock, Mr. Mayor. I guess we can all just whenever, because we use the
Okay, okay.
clock. right now.
Put the 3 minutes on there. Hold on, boy.
No, you had it,
No,
Mr. Mayor. He called me boy, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'm asking you to have him removed.
No, let's be correct.
Don't write people names. I haven't called you a name. No,
Have you?
you ran your timer out.
No, Mr. Mayor, you run this meeting.
Okay, I'll give you 1 minute and
For
then
him to interfere.
we gotta hit up every time. Okay, 1 minute.
Have you removed? Are you gonna remove me, Todd?
I don't need to remove you. You're talking to me now. He gave you a minute. Talk to him.
1 minute instead of.
Mr. Mayor, the issue with the building inspector problem has been confirmed by David Kraus himself. It's been confirmed in the county commission meeting. What this city has refused to do, and I asked this city to do it years ago before he was even thinking about running in political office, is to use the provisional program. The county has agreed that if you, the city, would have used the provisional program, that we would have had several building inspectors by now. How the county is able to have building inspectors, and you can ask David Kraus himself, is because they use the provisional program. That's why they got building inspectors. We have failed to do so. When I reached out and I begged this city council to use the provisional program at one point to bring on certain people to be a building official, you all disagreed with that program. Every new building inspector the county has is through the provisional program. It's not they went and found anybody. It's the provisional program. Let's implement a provisional program and get people hired on within the city limits for a building inspector.
Mr. Kraus, did you want to speak?
I want to say something. It's not even about.
Okay, and we're not gonna just spend all day up here now.
Well, Mayor, this is the point right here. When people are speaking, we are citizens. We are concerned about our city. So when we get up here,
But we have
speaking,
to
we
write
got
these
other
things
people
order.
coming
Everybody
back
just
and
can't.
forth.
Mr. Mayor,
You eat-
point of order. Didn't
And I
Mr.
think it's
Kraus have his hand
abuse
raised
of
before?
order.
Mr. Kraus,
We cannot abuse the point of order. Just because you're on the council, don't abuse the point of order, because I am a taxpayer.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. She's addressing me and not you.
I'm addressing the whole council. I'm talking to every last one of y'all up there. When somebody up here.
Mr. Mayor, I believe this will be
Because
boisterous.
you want respect
Yeah,
from the
okay,
people,
all right.
so you need to have respect.
Mayor,
okay.
Mr.
don't
Mayor,
make Todd in a bad
No,
position, Mayor.
what I'm trying to say is, you let the.
Mr. Mayor,
community
point of
speak.
order.
That's why we here,
Okay,
to speak, and stop abusing the point of order.
uh,
Because when we say point of order on you, you want to kick us out.
all right, have a seat.
And I talk to who I want to talk to.
Mr. Kraus,
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. David Kraus, I live at 338 Southwest Lakeview Avenue in Lake City. I am a city resident as well as I am the county manager. This is not about the city versus the county. The county is quite fine to continue doing our business operations, building inspections as we're doing. This isn't us versus them. The county's not trying to consolidate. The county's not trying to take over the city. It was just a business decision that we thought would benefit the city and benefit the county. Obviously, I'm sure your attorney can tell you, usually when you set up these types of arrangements, there's always a provision that it can be rescinded. And the city could always go back to service at any time the city would win. I guess the only reason I'm speaking is I don't want this to look like the county and city are in competition with each other, because we're not. We're all in this same boat together. We either sink or swim together. If the city's not successful, the county's not successful. If we can bring in development, these are jobs that your residents, my neighbors get to have, you get to have. I don't ever want to create a situation where it's us versus them. And this is not one of those situations. It's simply the building code is the same regardless of whether you're in the city limits or the county. It's the same state building code. The inspection process is the same. They're certified the same. We have 4 inspectors. If the city would like us to help you, great. And if you don't, that's fine too. But it's not an adversarial type situation. And I hope we don't, whatever other utility issues are out there or whatever, this is a separate issue. And I just want us to, from my point of view as a citizen of the city of Lake City, whatever you think makes the best sense, I'll support.
David, can you answer how do you all got?
That's from the,
I'm asking David, how you got building inspector through the provision program?
Mr. Warren,
Don't even think about it,
there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, there's been a motion on the second, discussion by council.
Mr. Mayor, I think we have to look into what is in the best interest of the citizens as well as the businesses, and not necessarily the best interest of certain special interests. And that would be my statement on that.
All right, anybody?
Agree, Mayor. I think it's more than the benefit of citizens. It's a issue that we don't have. And as Mr. Krause has said, the county has been willing to step up and work with us on this issue. And this is an arrangement that can be reversed should in the future we decide to rescind that and go in other directions. But right now, I feel that it's a need for both the city and the county as well. So I support that motion.
Okay. Ms. Ashley, talk about.
Mayor, before I do that, may I just clarify the motion to make sure we're clear?
Sure.
Okay. Motion to enter into an agreement with the county to appoint the county building official as the city building official, and to allow the county to operate building permitting and inspection services under Florida Building Code, and to collect fees for said operation.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yeah.
Mr. Hill?
No.
Mayor Whit?
Yeah. Okay, we'll go ahead and take up the issue of the Mlk Parade or walk, I mean, not the parade, but the walk. I spoke to Mr. Warren about their having a, what is it, a walk or run?
Mr. Mayor, we're having, in lieu of the parade being canceled, the animatics board park, in which I'm a board member, we took it upon ourselves to make sure that this day was honored and not be missed. No other organization stepped up to do so. So what we did, we put a 3K walk run. The college is sponsoring it, is a main sponsor. There's some other folks. The state attorney will also be there. And one of the issues, concerns that we're having because of all of the shooting that was taking place along that route, and talking to Lieutenant Miles and talking with Mr. Butler, Chief Butler, is that we have some concerns. And so we need some police presence there. And the only way to avoid costs that would be associated with it from a nonprofit standpoint would be to have you, Mr. Mayor, and the council to support the MLK Day and providing extra police officers for that event. I think it becomes a public safety issue in which we need your help on.
Okay, and we're not meeting before this event, so that's why I brought it up today. And I've spoke to Chief Butler and he's got the resources to handle that. Is that correct, Chief Butler?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is there a motion to allow the police to
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to allow the police to do that. I know it's not on the agenda, so I don't know.
I think we have to say that it's an emergency type thing that there's not time to, without calling a special meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Copeland?
Mayor, you do need to add it to the agenda, so there needs to be a motion to add it to the agenda.
Okay, I just did when I go first.
We did that at the beginning.
Okay, just let me finish. We add it to the agenda. If it wasn't announced at that point, the imminency of it, then it would need to be included in the motion. I think, though, that the motion needs to be clarified. Are you waiving the otherwise fee to hire the police department, or are you
Yes.
sponsoring it somewhere you did Founder's Day? And therefore, there would be no fee either. So are you actually just waiving the fee that an event sponsor or promoter would otherwise need to pay?
Mayor, if I could. With the police department,
Yes,
the way the council's historically done it, if the council decides to sponsor an event, and the police department provides services on city overtime. That way, we're not getting into a mess as far as who's waiving what or anything.
okay, just
If
do
you
it.
tell us you're sponsoring it, then we'll provide the police services.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I'd amend my motion that the city would sponsor the event.
okay.
Second.
And the motion, in the motion.
In an emergency status.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any further comments? Ms. Sykes, you call the roll.
Do we need the date and time of the event? Sylvester, do you have the time of the event, please?
It will be January the 17th, 2022. It will commence at 9 a.m. and end at 2 p.m.
Is that out at the college, Sylvester?
No, ma'am, I'm sorry. It's at Animax Park, 537 Northeast Center Street.
Thank you.
Mayor, Spencer, what's the route on that?
The route, we will be going north on Center Street. We'll make a left on MLK. We'll go down to MLK, and when we get to Aggie, we'll make a right on Aggie, heading north on Aggie toward the Richards Community Center. We'll make a left on Coach Anders, heading west, and then we'll make a left on Catawba, heading south, and then it take us back to MLK, and then we'll head back down MLK, heading east, back to Animax.
All right, Ms. Sykes, you call the roll.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay, we're getting way behind Mr. Jefferson's got an event he needs to go to, so we need to move along. I know a couple people want to speak, but if whoever wants to speak now, if you could be very brief and to the point and respectful. Who wants to speak right now before we do the interview?
Mr. Mayor, a few things I want to say. One, I want to say thank you for taking my call and your being receptive to the idea of having to put this MLK security thing on there. On behalf of myself and the Animax board, we thank you and for doing that, along with the council for supporting that security. Also, Mr. Mayor, I think there was a miscommunication with you and I last night, and I think we both agreed to that this morning when last night I asked you about how was the questioning going to be with the candidate, and you told me this morning that those questions for citizens was meant to be handled during the meet and greet process.
Right.
And the reason I asked you that was because during the meet and greet process with the candidate, that particular candidate was very defensive and refused to answer certain questions from me and other folks. And so there's issues that are very concerning to me as I live in this city and many other people, and especially with the contribution that I made within the city limits personally and financially. And so as a citizen, when a person at a meet and greet don't answer those questions, my question to you is, how do I get those questions to the candidate that are of huge concern to myself and the community in which I live in if that candidate at the meet and greet refused to answer those questions? So I'm left without getting the answer. So the meet and greet as a taxpayer and bringing him here, feeding him and housing him with some of my dime served me no purpose. So how do we rectify that, Mayor?
I don't know, but I don't think we can have the citizens be part of the interview process unless the council has a different idea.
Well, there's just certain questions that's paramount to the way that the city operates. and the issues that we have, and that's my concern. I thought that's what the meet and greet was about, that he was supposed to answer questions.
I can't answer that, and if he didn't, he didn't.
And is that fair to the citizens?
I guess that's part of our process.
Not having candidates answer questions is part of our process? So, thank you.
All right, anybody else want to speak? Mr. Lilker?
Thank you, Your Honor. Stu Local, Columbia County Observer. I have a problem with this, and I believe that the candidate also had a problem with not having both candidates here at the same time. This reminds me when I first watched the first Ali Frazier fight and walked across the Third Avenue Bridge to Washington Heights. I was trying to imagine what it would have been like if only Muhammad Ali showed up. And the bell went off, and I would co-sell what he said, and Muhammad Ali puts a jab. And you'll have to tune in next week to find out what Mr. Frazier did. And then they said, Muhammad Ali danced around the ring. And then they said, Mr. Frazier leaned up against the rope. Tune in next week to see what he did. I'd like to know from you guys how you think this is entirely fair. When I spoke to the candidate last night, who was very polite, didn't want to answer what his salary was. He said that he thought the dates were on the 15th and 16th. Now you have the dates on the 18th and 19th. If you look at the agenda, you guys, this is not about Ms. Norlock. This is not about this candidate. This process is about all of you guys not being able to hire a city manager. And then we found out a minute or two ago that Mr. Jefferson has something so important to do that everybody's got to hurry up because he's got another event.
He's got death defense.
The city,
He got a death defense.
well, then he should just go to hell then. I'm sorry about the funeral.
Hey,
But I'm really sorry. Then maybe you should just do these interviews next week. Let me finish.
No, you went too far.
Wait.
Oh, I'm related to that one.
Okay, hold on.
point of order.
I'm just gonna finish. That's all. I didn't know he had a funeral. They should have announced it.
Point of order.
Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is, I'd like to know how much this candidate knows about public records in the state of Florida. That's a very important thing. Public records continually get behind here. And I would say, I apologize, Mr. Jefferson, I didn't know that you had a funeral. But if this was all done on the same day, we wouldn't have this problem today. Bad things happen. And maybe you should think about doing this when both candidates can show up at the same time. The other thing is, if you notice, in the last time you had a search for city manager, all the candidates filled out applications. And those were available to the public and the city council, every candidate. At this time, no applications were filled out. When I spoke to the candidate last night, I kind of got the impression that he wasn't working anymore in Santa Fe. But yet his resume says he's still employed there, says to the present. So I would like to know if he's still working there, and maybe somebody could ask that question. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Jefferson.
We need to get on with it.
Mr. Mayor, if you will, just let me respond to that one. Mr. Stu, this meeting was from 10:30 to 11:30, and I will be here from 10:30 to 11:30. Obligations. Anything that surpasses that would be some tensions on my part. But I don't know where you was going with that or why that came in, but I'm here until 11:30, and that's the schedule of the meeting, and I will.
All right, Ms. Norlock, will you please come address us?
Morning, Mayor, council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. As you know, we have Mr. Glenn Adams here, one of our finalists for the city manager process. Mr. Adams has been here for a few days. He came in early on his own accord, and he has done a tour. He was given a guided tour of the community yesterday, as well as meeting with the department directors to do a question and answer session for about an hour. And then there was a meet and greet that was scheduled yesterday. This morning, he's had one-on-ones with each of you for about 30 minutes. And now we have set aside time of about an hour for him to do another group interview with you. As you're aware of, we have a council member who has a challenging schedule today, and that is fine. I believe this is being recorded, so he'll have the advantage of watching it later. So we're going to move forward, and I just want to quickly say that we were originally scheduled to have candidates this weekend. Mr. Adams was available, Mr. Thomas was not. We tried to move it to next weekend. Mr. Adams was not available, Mr. Thomas was. Both candidates were aware that the other candidate would be scheduled at a different time. I made sure they were comfortable with that. And that's why Mr. Adams is here today and Mr. Thomas is scheduled to be here in the future. I understand we had a council member that had a conflict next weekend. So there's some discussion about whether or not you are willing to have Mr. Thomas in on the 18th and 19th of January for his interview. He's excited about coming. I get it's not ideal. We are doing the exact same things with Mr. Thomas that we have done with Mr. Adams as far as structure and schedule. As you know, we have done references for the two candidates. That information has been provided to each of you. We again asked references to the same exact questions, and the answers that we got were actually transcribed from the people who responded to us. We didn't write those answers. We recorded those answers. So you have those. Today, we do not have to have the same set of questions for candidates. We're at a second round of interviews, and it's most important that you drill down to what's important to ask Mr. Adams while he's here. And I have given you a set of suggested questions if you want to use those. I'm not telling you to use those. That's not the format for today. But if you can't think of one, or you want to ask one, or you see one on there that you think is important to ask, then please feel free to use those questions. I will remind you of questions you cannot ask or subjects that you cannot broach with the candidates. Again, I encourage you to ask follow-up questions if you need clarification or some kind of clarification question. That is fine. But any questions related to things like age, race, ethnicity, color, national origin, religion, marital status, gender identity, sex, disabilities, citizenship status, genetic information, medical conditions, and on and on and on. Those kinds of personal questions we cannot ask. I'm in the room, the attorney's in the room. We'll throw a red flag if you go there, but I think in general, you understand what we're talking about. So with that said, I hope I have addressed everything that I need to at this point. And Mr. Adams is ready to,
Okay.
He's gonna sit here at this table if that's
Sure.
fine.
Mr. Adams, you want to come on up?
Thank you.
Thank you. I knew because Mr. Jefferson has to go. I'm gonna go ahead and let Mr. Jefferson ask the first question. If he has several questions, we'll just let him do that right now, and then we'll take turns. We'll start with, after Mr. Jefferson, Mr. Sampson, and me, and Mr. Hill.
Well, again, I'd like to thank you for coming, Mr. Adams. And, thank you for applying. Thank you for you taking the trip to meet with us, today. I know that you arrived in our city or our community a few days prior to, and I commend you for that. But concern of mine is, I guess I'll pose the question this way: after reviewing, I have an opportunity to tour our city or look over our city. What do you think of our city? And have you formulated any conclusions as to any things that you see that in our city that perhaps caught your eye, that perhaps we need to work on or can draw from?
Sir, that is an outstanding question. It's difficult to answer per se, but I will do my best to. And I want to thank the council for this opportunity to interview. I came here early to make sure it's a good fit for my wife and I. This is a substantial move. It is important that we make this decision correctly. As much as I've explained in our discussions, this is a two-way interview. I have to make sure I'm a good fit with this council, with the city, and the things that are problems in the city. I will tell you, the citizens of the city are extremely friendly. The majority of them love the city. They love being in the city. There are a few that are moving on, but most of the people that I saw came here. They came here from Jacksonville. The majority came from Jacksonville because of the friendliness of the citizens and the opportunities to be involved here. A couple of them came from New York, which is a pretty big move, and I'm kind of surprised that they ended up staying right here. And one of the things that they were at a waypoint and they discovered the people were so nice, they just ended up staying. I will tell you, there are issues in the businesses and the community, and I think even with the county and this has been a tough year for this city. The council and the city manager and the number of people that have moved on from this position, and the fire chief passing, there is a lot of voids in the leadership in the city, and the staff is doing everything they can. They're really running around like their hair is on fire to try to make sure they cover down on all of the things that are required of the people that are gone to make things happen. And I really was impressed with that. But we've got a lot of little issues everywhere I turned, and they add up quickly and they become overwhelming to manage, and that you can't solve them in a short period of time. It's going to take a long, protracted effort to do so. You can't go through the change that this city has gone through with a loss of a city manager, police chief, a fire chief, the HR director, the change management director, the amount of things and key positions that have occurred, and expect everything to go on as normal. So yeah, there's a lot. It's quite a daunting task.
Thank you.
Mr. Jefferson, did you have any other questions you want to ask?
No, go ahead.
As a little bit of a follow-up to that, so you're looking at it with outside vision and eyes, something we don't have the luxury of living here and living it every day. What do you see as the opportunities that are available? Not looking at the challenges so much, but what opportunity do you see from what you experienced in your short time?
I would tell you that there's enormous number of opportunities. If you look at your city, you're about 12,500 strong, and I will tell you the traffic that I see out here is about 35,000 residents strong. So having that many people inside the city on a daily basis means there's cash flow opportunities any way, shape, or form you turn. I honestly believe that most of the county citizens see themselves as a city resident, even if they're not a city resident. They identify as Lake City. Just having that and understanding that means that there's probably some loyalty to support things that happen within the city. I had a question whether or not I believed in community activities from a couple of the directors yesterday in our meet and greet. And I quite honestly believe that's what makes the city special. The individual events, even like this Martin Luther King event, that is critical and important for this community to endorse and support, and we should put it on the calendar every single year that it's automatic, that we're doing things like that. Because it's those things that make it special. Savannah, Georgia has the largest Mlk Parade in the US. That's pretty impressive. And everybody comes from around the world to come see that. And I will tell you, those kind of things will grow and become something of their own as you do it. So there's opportunities in this city and the surrounding counties who come here every single day to have more things become intrinsic parts of people's lives. Those are amazing opportunities. I will tell you it's a contentious point, but the downtown investment that is the Blanche, I'm staying in the Blanche right now, and I will tell you I enjoy it. When you invest in stuff in the city, it is a good indicator to the businesses that you intend to continue to push things. And doing so, creating opportunities. You saw the place out there, the axe throwing place. That's big now, believe it or not. And people are going to come here and spend time here doing it. And that's additional money downtown in the revenue. But in the conversations, we need to spread that investment across the city fairly. And those things need to be addressed and those issues need to be discussed and we need to find a way forward on it.
I have a little follow-up on
Sure.
that. So it's looking at that. So that was the opportunity side. Now you got a little bit into challenges. So not to be, I know there's a lot of challenges, but what would you say from your outside perspective are some of the challenges you noted?
I will tell you, trust is the toughest one. You don't build trust overnight. You have to give it to get it. And in all honesty, I don't think right now we're sitting in a good relationship with our county. I know we're not doing that with our citizens because they're being vocal about it right now. I will tell you that trust is the most important thing. And it's not just the city manager, it's the council and the mayor all being seen and talked to and listening to the issues and giving the authority to solve them. And I don't believe you get the issues like you saw today overnight. And I'll be honest with you guys, I know I'm polarizing and put myself in a bad way here, but I was sitting back there and I told Renee, you don't give up a key function of the city, you make it an interim effort and you say it's coming back. And I know that's polarizing in the concept. And that was one of the things that I talked to the county manager about is we're failing because we shouldn't have put that on them for such a long period of time. We should have changed the way we did business, offered more money to those positions or better resources for those positions. And I understand that I'm putting myself at risk saying that, but it's true. That is a fundamental thing that the city is required to do. And we have to do it. Those are challenges. There's a lot more, and I'm sorry, I can't go into every single detail. One of the things that I believe in is life cycle replacement. Our utilities, we should have the budget put into the fees and costs that we have life cycle replacement. If there's a part that lasts 30 years, 40 years, 10 years, those parts need to be put into the system at a regular basis so that they can be replaced without being a new bond, a new requirement, new something that surprises us down the road. We know that in 15 years, we're going to have to tear up Main Street to take out the pipes that were put in it and put it to the side where we never have to tear up Main Street again. That's the kind of thing that we should do.
Very good. Thank you.
Coming in as a new manager, how would you gain the trust and the support of the staff and get them to adapt to your leadership?
Well, I teach a class and I kind of joke about it. I took it from my dad, and my dad was really prolific in this, and he understood that you can't teach leadership to Army officials because they all are the best leader they've ever seen. So he called it time management for real people and put leadership throughout. And the first thing I'm going to do is do that class for my directors because they need to know and understand how I lead. I empower my workforce. I have monthly meetings with them to counsel them, and it's a two-way counseling. They are required to give me feedback and where I'm doing right, wrong, and indifferent. And if something comes up that I am failing them the second time, they have every right to bring it up and hold me accountable to it. Those are discussions that we have to have. And in all honesty, that's how you build the trust in the team, that they're able to tell me that I'm screwing up some way, shape, or form, and I have to repair because that's my job to fix those things. And the same thing with the council. I'll be honest with you, if I'm not communicating with you all on a regular basis, individual or however you need it, I can't protect their interests. If you don't know that the issue with the change management is we can't hire somebody because we're not giving them the right amount of money, we're not giving them the right benefits, we're not giving them the right things to get somebody to come here and stay here, you got to be involved with that. It can't be a surprise to you. And then come back here, you mentioned up to 2 years and say, hey, look, we haven't been able to do it for 2 years. I should have been telling you we didn't hire it at this first, whatever it is, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month. We're doing these changes and I may come back to you for more money. But those are that's how you get to it. You have to start affecting it. You have to go there, you got to see it. and you gotta go see their issues firsthand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Adam, you say you got here on Wednesday.
Yes, sir, late afternoon.
Since you've been here, have you gone around in the community, such as the north side of Lake City? Or yesterday, did Mr. Dow take you on the north side of Lake City?
Only on the north side for when I stopped at a gas station. I did not go specific locations on the north side, but I'll be honest, I didn't go to many locations specifically, except for to do some house hunting to see whether or not I could find a place to live. I did go to the airport because that, I believe, was my weakness, and I found out the airport manager is strong. There was a young lady on the north side that I did stop at the gas station. I talked to her. She's one of the ones that had moved from Jacksonville and was super excited about the friendly people, but I did not do anything more than that.
So on the north, that gas station you stopped at was on that end of town?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, and it is definitely a disparity difference between that area and this area.
A great difference. But you got people that live in the city or the county, whatever, don't think none of the tax dollars need to be spent on that end of town. So that would be a challenge for you to get some of the tax dollars that they take from over there, put them back over.
Yes, sir, and I do understand that, and I've asked two of the council members to make sure that if I'm selected, that I meet the right people to talk to about how I can positively affect those things and how I can better help those areas.
Okay.
Mr. Jefferson.
Yes, based on your experience as city manager and other previous professional positions that you've held, but speaking of the role, you view it, the role of councilman, working relationship with each other, what is your opinion on what I guess positive?
I know you just set me up, and I'll be happy to answer that question. I honestly, and I ask forgiveness in advance. I don't see you guys as a functional city council. I see that you're not teaming at every opportunity. I believe there's real opportunities for you guys to make a significant interest. And just like I said in the meeting, if this is my number one important item, all of you should support it if I'm a council member. And it shouldn't be a disagreement thing. You should be saying, city manager, figure out how to bring that forward to the council so that we move out on it. Everybody is allowed to have wins in this council. And it shouldn't be one side or the other side. Everybody should have wins. And I should be held accountable to making that happen. Now, I will tell you the other side of the coin is whether it's Mr. Thomas or I, you need to have a long-term contract to make sure that you're sending the message to the county and to the businesses that we're going to stabilize things and we're going to play fair. And then it needs to have a severance package. And sir, I understand, but you don't pay a severance package if you force yourselves to work together. And I believe in my heart of hearts, that's how you send the message to the community. You're here for the long haul and you're going to work through all the issues. And we've got to hold each other accountable to it. It has to be a team. And nobody sitting in this city manager seat will be successful if the council is not teaming at every opportunity they can. And quite honestly, holding me accountable to the fairness to the community. Did I answer your question? I wanted to make sure I dove on that one pretty hard.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so to follow that up, so you said a good point, and I think it's crucial, not looking back on past management, but I think communication with each council member to know what those goals are is important, especially, and I'm not sure, in Florida law, we can't communicate each other. You're the point that can communicate to us. So I think that's a big step that you just mentioned, but do you have a way of communicating with the council members? How would you recommend to do that as a manager?
I will tell you, it's going to be an individual. There's some people that won't have as much time. I may need to send them an email and say, hey, at your convenience, let me clarify. There may be others that we need to have a routine, and I prefer routines. Wednesday at 2, we're going to meet, and we're going to go over things. I will tell you that the most important thing to me is workshops in which we, as a team of leaders and the community is sitting in there, and we're not up on a dais, we're in front of a table, and the community is around us, and we're diving into issues and solving them, and people are providing real-time input to us of what our thoughts are, and our staff, the people who make that happen, are involved, and they're sitting there providing input and being encouraged to provide input and solve those issues. But the communication is individual based off of the availability of time and the method in which they prefer to receive the information. I prefer one-on-one, in-face meetings.
Thank you.
This morning, and when we talked earlier, you talked about, increasing pay for workers and things like that. How would you see us being able to raise the revenues to do these things that we have to do?
Well, there's multiple things to that, and I can't pretend to answer it all at the same time, but I will tell you that just like I brought up the question about the dispatching and the licensing, that's money. It's going to save the city money. There's other areas that we're going to find that are there. Finding the efficiencies to solve those issues is going to be critical, but the investment into the community and the creating the long-term stability of this leadership will give the county and businesses belief and faith in investing. And we need to team with the county as much as possible because they get the bigger access to additional funds. And they've already said they want to team with us. Now we got to make sure we protect our interests. I've already had and heard the conversations on utilities. I got a feeling that they don't understand just how complicated things get. And we really need to team and say, hey, we'll take this lead, but we've got to make sure we're mitigating our risks and all the ideas you're coming up with, because we can't invest money in something that isn't going to happen.
Let's see. Lake City has a lot of new hotels. So why did you choose the one downtown?
Because it's right here next to City Hall.
Are you aware that the city is on the hook to cut them a check every month for X amount of dollars?
I understand. I asked the Blanche themselves when I saw the item in the budget, and I talked to them. I agreed with the concept. I'm not going to be able to sit here and defend how it was done or why it was done, but right now, if you look at the investment, I see businesses coming in downtown, so I believe it's working.
Matter of opinion, but thank you.
Yes, sir. It is an opinion, and I can only base it off of the time I've had to look into it.
One final question, Mayor. Just hypothetically, you recognize weaknesses or problems in a particular department. What I'm curious as to know what would be your approach in terms of alleviating those or improving what you consider weaknesses in any particular department?
I believe right now, I can't sit here and point out things. I've only had a couple hours to look at things. I will tell you that.
And I'm just speaking hypothetically.
Okay.
On any particular department, it's just a hypothetical question.
So as you deal with an individual department, you have a conversation with the director or the leader of that department, and you find out the specifics of what's going on. And then you have a discussion, but the most important thing is you force that director to have a meeting with their staff and start solving those issues, because I guarantee you the people who are doing the day-to-day things already know how to fix a lot of those issues. I found that everywhere I've been, that they know the easier ways to do it, the way to fine tune things. They just need the authority and permission to fine tune it. And a lot of times that solves those issues. As it gets deeper, you're definitely going to have to invest time and effort into looking into those organizations and the things that are going on in them. I've been in situations where we've had to investigate individuals in it because of wrongful doings. And when you do those investigations, it could have an impact on the people, but it has an impact if you don't do it. If you don't fix it, you don't look into things when you discover it, you're creating an undertone of distrust that you cannot afford.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I have a next question I'd like to ask. Looking at the demographics of the past city was something I'd done. So it's not homogenous. There is some cultural diversity, but I would like to hear about any experience you have working in a culturally diverse background.
Well, the U.S. Army is culturally diverse. I mean, I was in it for 26 and a half years, and then as a civilian, I was at White Sands Missile Range for 4.5 years. The diversity is there, period. I will tell you, I was mentor trained and developed by every race and every gender. And I hate to say it, but probably my best mentors were females. I don't know what the ego issue is with males about mentoring and training each other, but they are not as good of a mentor. My best mentor, though, is probably Lieutenant General retired Ed Cardone. He was my first mentor, and I referenced him before. He said, I'd like to be your mentor, and my first thing is I'm going to tell you is you have to ask people to be your mentor. They don't ask you. But going on, the diversity, I will tell you, in the military is across the board. And I will tell you at White Sands Missile Range, the majority of the people were Hispanic. And the diversity at Santa Fe is Hispanic. It's not Black, it's Hispanic, but it's there. I will tell you that in the military, you look at the quality of the individual and you deal with the people based off of those qualities. Because when you're in a foxhole, you want to know you can trust the person next to you. You don't care whether or not they're Black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. You want to know that they've got your back.
Very good, thank you.
As far as economic development, what do you see as ways to gain the right enterprises to come to the city?
Well, we've seen a lot in the Economic Development Corporation being able to invest into communities with grants for businesses, matching grants for helping the aesthetics of the outside of the buildings. So it was nice meeting you. And setting the conditions for growth. It is easier to grow a business that exists 3 to 5% than it is to start a business from scratch because quite honestly, small businesses starting from scratch don't have a long lifespan or statistically don't. But the truth is the investment, and one of the things that I did as a city manager, I was on the chamber board so that I would meet with the business owners or managers of each new business that was coming in and have those frank conversations of what went right in you coming into establishing this business and what went wrong. And I would focus on how to fix the things that went wrong and then make sure I give kudos to the people that made it easier.
Mr. Adams, in your first interview, you stated that you spoke with the community. And my question to you is, who in the Black community did you speak with?
Before the 22nd, I didn't speak with anybody in the Black community. I can tell you what I was doing and how I did it. I was concerned about the relationship the city had, so I called the county manager. I mentioned earlier that I was concerned about the money in the budget for the Blanche Hotel, so I called Dan DeNeal and talked to her about it. I saw an article in the paper about 1,200 apartments going in at the accessway to Gateway College, and I called up the president of the college and talked to him a little bit. It wasn't an issue on the apartments, but he said the relationship with both the county and the city is strained. That's concerning also. I did talk to the director of the chamber. That's the full-time person, but I got a late phone call back on that because they were at a honeymoon. And then I got a phone call back based off of the conversations that I had with the county manager, the acting city manager at the time, to follow through with the fact that the dispatching and licensing issue was being worked at that. So those are the people, and then because of the conversation in that afterwards, I was given the name of Philip Mobley, and I reached out to him and I talked to him for 30 minutes, but that was after the date of the 22nd. So those are the conversations I had.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have on that question.
Do you have, going into a position similar to what, we see it high profile when football coaches are hired? You mentioned earlier a contract and a severance. Normally there's like a 90-day, 6-month, a year, or a 5-year plan. Do you have a plan? Maybe it's kind of generic, but do you have a plan for what you want to accomplish in certain time periods if you were to become the city manager?
I hate to sound like that this is just routine for me, but it almost is routine. I told you all that I moved 14 times. If I move here, this will be the 15th time with my spouse in the 26 years of marriage. In the Army, you stay in a job for 1 to 2 years. And when you come into the job, you're immediately held accountable for the full scope of things. So the things that I would do here is have a meeting with all the directors and set up a routine meeting that we would have weekly based off of their schedule, so it doesn't interfere with everybody's workload and doing things. But it has to be something that we can consistently go to so it becomes part of the schedule. I would require all of them to set up a time on my calendar to take me through the full breadth and depth of their job and everybody in their job, all of the things that they're required to do. And I need to understand both the good things and the bad. All the things that keep them up at night, I need to learn, but I will not guarantee I can remember everything when I'm going through all of this. So they're going to have to create something that I'm able to look at and be able to take with me when it's done. I also require everybody to go through counseling with me. And the first one is they need to write down all of the things that they believe their job title and requirements are. And I will be looking at that compared to what the job announcement is, because a lot of the times I've learned what people were hired for and what they're actually doing does not necessarily match up. And you have job creep, and you need to appropriately pay people for the requirements they're doing. And that is my job, to make sure that they are managed at the proper level for the scope of work they're doing. And if I owe the council some new information so they understand what the organizational structure, then I'm able to provide that then. But that counseling session is monthly until I understand their department, and then it normally goes to quarterly. But in that counseling, I require them to provide feedback to me every single month in the things that I'm doing right, wrong, and if I'm being indifferent. And the problems come down with all of those is if I am not supporting them being successful, then I am failing them. And it makes it really tough as you are coming into a job to make sure you hit everything, but that's how you guarantee you hit everything. The other thing is setting up a relationship with the council. So I have meetings on a regular basis that you guys can rely on, so you're not surprised by things that are brought forward to you, the council. You already know about it. You fully understand. I know your position, and I'm able to address it. So you guys are getting all the information in front of your citizens so that you are showing that you are engaged and you are able to answer the questions, or you're able to ask critical questions that may sway your opinion one way, shape, or form or the other. it is important that I establish that relationship early, and it has to be one of trust. So those are the things that are critical. That normally takes a little bit longer than 90 days because this organization is fairly large.
I have a follow-up. So, that sounds like some good steps. You mentioned, in Mr. Hill's question previously that you were looking at opportunities for housing.
Yep.
What did you find, on the availability? Did you find housing available?
Not much housing that I would move into readily. Most of it would be a rebuild. There's some community stuff that's, and I need to be clear. I'm anal and I apologize, but I need to live inside the city limits. The charter that you guys have out there says I need to live in the county, but I need to live in the city limits. I have to be within the city limits. And if I'm not in the city limits, I can't look your constituents in the eye, the people I am supporting in the eye, and say I'm dealing with the same things.
And so there's a lack of things available within city limits for sure.
Yes.
That's move-in ready. And I do think that's part of what we're going to be looking for in this position is someone who has some ability for the growth of a housing market. I mean, which leads us to expansion. Do you have one more follow-up on this? So do you have experience with expansion of boundaries of a city such as annexation?
Texas has a very strict annexation law. If I want somebody to come into the city, they have to ask. I am not allowed to force them anymore. So the Texas laws are very specific. So the annexation that we've done is in development and in providing the utilities to them and providing the methods. There's tax income rental reinvestment zones, there's planned use developments, there's things that they can get funding from that allows them to say, yes, it's worth it to be annexed themselves into the city. So the scope of what you're talking about, no, I do not have that specific annexation experience.
Very good, thank you.
What characteristics or skills do you think is the most important for a city manager, and how does your background and skills match that?
There's so many. And I will start with the ability to go out and talk to people, see issues real time. When people call up and say there's an issue, you have to physically go there and look at it to understand it. You can't sit behind your desk, and you got to bring in your subject matter experts on the issue with you. So you're discussing it real time with people so they know and understand you're addressing it. Following up with them also is important. The next skill is being able to create teams. Whether it's a team with taxing entities such as the county or businesses, working with the chamber, getting events created, the ability to make teams across a wide scope of organizations is really critical. I reference that in my resume, in which when you go to war, you want to go to war with as many friends as you can. And the staff levels I've had to work across all the different services, non-government and government agencies in theater and outside of theater to make things happen. One of the biggest things is in Japan, when I got there, Okinawa, the Prime Minister of Japan resigned over stationing in Okinawa. I was charged with getting them back to the table. We had to find methods in which we created trust because similar requirements and needs. We talked with every one of the installations, and they then started talking with the communities around them about the similarities of issues that the Japanese people and the U.S. have in protecting their sovereign rights and their individual needs. They came back to the table in 5 months. We started an $8 billion Okinawa investment to mitigate a lot of the issues that were going on. So those are some of the key things. There's so many more. The leadership, the trust, the the ability to participate in events around the community, be seen, so you can be approached, all of those.
Okay, hands down, you, yourself and Mr. Thomas was the best of the 4 candidates. What makes you the best man for this job?
Probably the willingness to work it through. It sounds contrite, but when you moved around jobs as much as I have, you learn how to take certain things in stride because they will work themselves out. Other things you prioritize and you create a list of prioritization to solve issues, and you empower your people. And I'm really good at mentoring, training, and developing my people to solve issues at the lowest level possible. So things that used to trickle on up and become timed themes from leadership all the way up to your level are handled at the lowest level possible and no longer take time from all of the people that need to solve the bigger issues. And I'm really good at developing my staff to do things exactly. So I think those are the critical parts, but the teaming part comes into
Second.
How soon, if you were chosen, could you start?
It depends on how you want things done. I am available. And as the gentleman over here brought up, we signed a separation agreement. I did inform Ms. Narlock of that separation agreement with the city. I provided the guidance and the things they needed to do to finish hiring the police chief. But I did not end up staying on to do the police chief hiring. They wanted to change focus, and now they're focusing solely on hiring the city manager. So at this time, I'm available to come here. The timing really depends on what the city's needs are, because I'm fully capable of coming here and living austere for a period of time and then being able to release to move when ready. My wife has prepared the house to move so many times that she can do that on autopilot and does not need me, and sometimes I get in her way. So she's more than capable of packing up things and more than capable of setting the conditions for her to run.
I'll follow up on that. So you mentioned that she packs things up, and she accompanied you on this trip.
She did.
And I'm sure any decision, and I gotta be careful, I ask this, I see her looking. I know. But when you hire an executive, again, we're hiring you, but you don't come alone. Have you gotten any feedback about our city otherwise?
She's defensive of me, so she is
Understandable.
But I will tell you, she knows that I'm capable of doing all of the things that are required. And she likes the people, she likes the community. She believes that there is enough here that she would be happy. We like to bowl, there's a bowling alley. There's things we could do. Her big concern is there's no dog park. It's one of her concerns and pet peeves. We're dog people. But that said, she likes the people. She likes the fact that we're close proximity to several of our friends, and we'll be able to retouch contact with them.
So I have another. So earlier you mentioned, and I know in discussion I had with Ms. Narlock, I had mentioned, I see a city manager kind of like hiring other executives. You look at, again.
Well, it is a chief executive officer.
It is. And so it's just like hiring someone to run a Fortune 100 or 500 or the Jaguars with their issues hiring a coach. So I think what you mentioned about a contract with a time frame in it and a severance package is interesting. Now you're in a unique situation because you move quite often in the past, being in the military, I understand that. So there will be commitment on both sides for a time frame. So I think I was wondering what you feel about committing to a certain time frame.
No issue with it.
Okay, no further questions.
Is there anything you want to ask us?
I think I've addressed most of it. The most important thing to me is I want you to understand that you guys have to be a team. And you guys each have to be able to win. And it has to be visible wins for this community to move forward. And yes, I have a big role in facilitating that, but I am not allowed to be in politics. And it's important that you guys understand before I am in a position, or if Mr. Thomas gets it, that you guys have to be that team before your next city manager can be successful. And if you're not that team, it doesn't matter who you hire here. They're not going to be able to knock out the things that are required because you have to be part of the team that solves it. That's it. And that's more of a statement than a question.
Right.
But really, I want you to know that coming in, the resistance that I would have is your ability to look me in the eye and say, I will be a team member on this council supporting each other's efforts so that you have unified direction, not broken direction. And I then would be able to do it.
Okay. Mr. Hill. Mr. Sampson, you got anything?
I think that's good. Wait, one quick follow-up what you just said. So I'll have a follow-up to that. So I know in our discussions earlier, we probably always gave you our, if all the discussions went the same, I would think you probably asked us what our visions are and things like that. Going back to what you just said about being a team, I think that's crucial. I think one of the issues we've had in the past is poor communication from the chief executive to get those visions, to see which direction to go to allow people to win. And with that being the case, I'm going to state here, like I've stated ever since I was elected, a vision and mission statement and strategic planning is crucial. Where do you stand on that? And that'll be my last question.
Everywhere I've been, I've relooked the vision and mission first thing. And whether it's redoing it with the commander or redoing it with the city council in Santa Fe. Then after that, I had strong conversation about looking at their immediate plans, 5 years, 6 years out, and then their deep plan. If you look at White Sands Missile Range, we had a 25-year plan published within my first year there. And then the second year, we broke it out into, and you have to understand federal government works in a 5 to 7 year plan. We work 2 years out for a 5-year budget. And so we had to break it down into increments that we can afford in that budget cycle. In the cities, you have to be able to look at new requirements that are coming in, and you have to be more adaptive in the things that we're talking about. So you can have a vision where our community comes together. So we have a 5 to 6 year plan that we do through workshops, and the community is involved on that. But you need to have somebody come in and do a comprehensive plan that picks our 25 to 30 year. This is what our citizens say this community is going to look like. And then we don't do anything that violates the intent that our citizens have laid out to us in that plan. And we're spending money in that direction. And therefore, we're solving the issues real time, but we can't just stay on that. When we have an emerging issues come up, we have to sit there and go, this is an emerging issue, we need to address it. And it can't be just, hey, we got to wait till the next budget cycle. Normally, we have to have a mid-year review to sit down and go, these things came up and we need to figure out how to get them into the budget. So those are the experience I've had, but every single place that I've been, I've had to do it. And you have to look at what is your mission vision, and you have to be able to support those.
Okay. Question. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here the last few days and for today. Yes. Mr. Norland.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members. I just want you to be thinking forward here about should we move one of these candidates forward and make them an offer. There's certain items that we would be needing to think about as we go forward. So I just want to kind of set that in motion. I don't know if you want to look at a prior contract or what, but I can send you some things to be considering as far as elements and an agreement for whoever you do decide to hire. I also need some direction on you on the actual approval for the date for Mr. Thomas to come. I think I sent you an email suggesting the dates that I think work for you and I know work for him. So I need some direction on that from you before too much longer. And then also the last thing is I wanted to clarify the question about Mr. Adams' employment. When he originally applied for the job, he was still on the payroll for the city of Santa Fe. When I interviewed him, which would have been several weeks after he applied for the job, he clarified during that conversation his separation date, that he was willing to stay on longer, but he had a separation date on the calendar. And then he separated from the city. So I just want to make sure that there's no question about whether he misrepresented anything or I misrepresented anything. Even when I presented him to you as a candidate, I mentioned that was taking place. So with that said, I'm going to thank you for your time today very much so. I look forward to Mr. Jefferson being able to watch the interview and field any questions that he may have. We have checked references. However, it's not unusual when you get closer to a time to make a decision. If you, as a council person, need to talk to a council person somewhere else that these candidates work for, or need to make a reference call yourselves instead of us doing that, we will help you do that. We'll get you the contact information and we'll accommodate that if you need that at any point in time. So with that said, we have pretty much finished the background work that we're doing for, in general, for the candidates. And I look forward to seeing you the next time we'll be together, which hopefully will be in about.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Ms. Narlock. So, you know, I did reach out to you this week and express that I would have preferred to see them both together. And I liked your explanation. And I think, you know, sometimes we don't realize the change in the job market. And I think it's important that everyone knows both of these candidates are interviewing other places. And that is part of why there's an issue with getting them together at the same time. I don't know how deep into that we should go or shouldn't go, but if we mess around and don't make a decision, we're probably going to lose both of the other jobs. So I think it's important as a council, one thing we need to look at is, you know, after we have the second meeting and we talk to the second candidate, to be timely for fairness for both of them.
Right.
They're not going to hold up their decision making for maybes, and I wouldn't expect them to. And on the other hand, I think it's fair to the citizens that, you know, we've been without a full-time city manager for a while. I think it's time we move forward and make a decision once we complete this process. You know, I was thinking before knowing the full situation that maybe it would have made sense what Mr. Bowden mentioned earlier to have a time period after the second candidate. I think if we do any kind of time period, we're liable to lose both candidates. And from my opinion, from those discussions, would you think that would be correct?
Councilmember, what I can do is I can take the temperature of candidates when we get to that point and say, you know, are you under pressure to make a decision about something else? Do you have, you know, what does it look like on your end?
Yeah, because I could see getting through the next process, whatever time frame we lay out, saying, hey, there should be a similar waiting period as was recommended earlier. I could see that.
Sure.
But at the same time, I don't want to say today, definitely I would be willing to do that if it means we might lose one or both candidates completely and then not even have a selection decision. So if you could keep us apprised of
Absolutely.
that situation as they interview, what their changes are,
Sure.
and just let us know. I think that'd be crucial.
Sure.
And so I don't know. I don't have any more questions for Ms. Narlock.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about the 18th and 19th. The 18th being the meeting with staff and the meet and greet, and then the 19th doing what we did this morning. That works for my schedule. I think. Is that good for yours?
Yeah, I can move on.
Okay, and Mr. Sampson? Okay, Ms. Sykes has mentioned to me about doing the meet and greet from 4:30 to 5:30 because we'll have a city council meeting that night at 6. So that would give her time to get things back in order, if that's good with everybody. Or if y'all want to move the council meeting and do. But to me, 4:30, 5:30 seems okay.
Okay. Mayor, if I may, I don't want to minimize the candidate's interest in this job and just say that they're out looking for just anything.
So that's correct.
They're
Yeah.
not. They want to consider Lake City.
Right.
It's a location of choice, but like anyone who's looking for employment and, you know, not knowing if they're going to be selected or not, you don't put all your eggs in one basket,
That's
right?
right.
You figure out where you want to be and you do what you need to do to move things forward in your career. So that's where we are with candidates.
And you've talked to Mr. Thomas, and the 18th and 19th does
Yes.
work better for him too,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Yes, much better.
So that's one reason for doing it.
It just worked out better that way. It was not ideal. That was not my desire. I wanted both of them here this weekend. Turned out one had a hard conflict this weekend and could not make it. So I looked at moving into next weekend. The other one had a hard conflict next weekend. We could not make it happen. We tried, could not make it happen. So we've just moved it out and tried to get it done as soon as possible. So not to keep everybody lingering, not you, not them, just move the process forward and be timely about it. Time, you need a certain amount of time to do this, but you don't need to drag it out.
Okay.
That's it. I think does anybody have any other questions for me?
Mr. Mayor, one other question. So the background checks are completed?
We have completed Mr. Adams' background check. Now, I want you to understand that there's processes where we're gathering all this information. We started them at the same time, based on lots of factors, like where there are hits on their social or date of birth or whatever. There could be county records over here that need to be checked, and over here, and here, and here, and here. Maybe if they've been in the same exact place forever, it's just one place that needs to be checked. So we just have to wait it out. That said, Mr. Adams' background check has completed as of today, and everything is clear. Mr. Thomas's background check is at about 95%. There are a couple of outstanding civil checks that are being done in the Illinois area right now. So my guess, and it's just a guess, is that, I may look this afternoon and it could be done. But that said, before you make a decision, it will be done. And we just did a level 1 background check. That's just some basic things that you do, check their motor vehicle records, check civil and criminal court records, verify education, and things like that. So there are some other things that your HR department will do as part of an onboarding process. And I don't know what those are. I don't know if you fingerprint or drug test or physicals or any of that other stuff, but there are things that will still happen after we hand off this candidate to you or to your HR department to do their onboarding process. So I want to make you aware of that. I don't have any concerns that candidates will be able to be onboarded properly.
Okay. And then, I think we've covered everything today. I got anything else?
I just want to thank you all very much. And I want to just say that I appreciate all the work that Audrey has put into helping move things along for us, and Paul for doing the tour, and everything that you've done. And the community has been great and been active and engaged. And I really do appreciate all that you've done here. So I will see you hopefully soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's nothing further. We'll be adjourned.
Mr. Mayor, we'll adjourn, but, I did put a card to speak to
Item 2.
Item 2, but
Do what now?
on the,
Item 2.
I filled out a card to speak